Junior, you're smashing an egg against this guy's face. I taught you that. I didn't teach you that. Who taught you that? Did Karen teach you that? That's disgraceful. I'm gonna stand in your corner. You must be mad. You must be mad. I would never be in your corner. You're a disgrace.
Just stop.
I'm so hurt by what's happened to him, and this is the situation they're putting my son in now.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are all doing well. So before we get started, as always, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. So as we all saw today, Chris Eubank Sr. making some comments. Obviously, the big fight between his son and Conor, Benn, is only 10 days away. I can't believe it's only 10 days away, by the way. It's one of the biggest fights this year, especially in Britain. Fight's only 10 days away, and we haven't heard much from Chris Eubank Sr. So he's, come out in the media today, done some interviews. And obviously, we're going to break down the comments that he's made about his son. Now, before we get started and what my thoughts are about what he said, I think in general, Chris Eubank Sr. is someone that, I've kind of, looked at multiple interviews today, listened to his perspective on things. And to be honest, I think in a lot of aspects he talks, a lot of sense. I think he's someone that, is not a big fan of this fight. I think there's, a lot of different things to break down. I think number one, if you guys remember the first fight, it was actually scheduled for Chris Eubank Jr. to come down to 157 pounds. Chris Eubank Jr. at 36 years of age, he's really a 168 pounder. He drains himself really to get down to 160. I don't think he should even be fighting at middleweight anymore. So for the first fight to be at 157, obviously the first fight didn't happen. But yeah, I think he would have been severely weight drained in that fight. He didn't look healthy when he took the pictures. So I could understand, from a father's perspective, why you're worried or, why you didn't agree with that. I think additionally, Chris Eubank Sr. is pretty much saying that the, promoters, they don't have the fighter's best interests at heart. I can understand that as well. Obviously, in the first fight, the news broke on fight week that, a journalist came out and said, hey, this fight shouldn't be happening. Conor Benn failed the drugs test 2 months ago. That was the first time that the public ever heard of it. And really the promoters involved, Eddie Hearn, was going to move forward with the fight when one of the fighters has failed 2 drugs tests. So obviously, did you have Chris Eubank Jr.'s best interest at heart then? No, you did not. Chris Eubank Sr. also mentioned the fact that Eddie Hearn put on Kell Brook against Gennady Golovkin. Kell Brook was a 147 pounder. He was a welterweight. In the prime of his career, moved up 2 weight classes. And not only just moving up 2 weight classes, fighting against one of the most destructive fighters in that weight class, a beast in Golovkin. And obviously Kell Brook broke his eye socket in that fight, and really he was never the same. So I can kind of understand where Chris Eubank Sr. is coming from when he says certain things. However, in terms of what he said about his son, I completely disagree with. I think, to call your son, and I can understand, look, as a parent, I've heard things, maybe you've disgraced the family name or you've let down your family. That's one thing. But I think to, go out in the media and call your son a disgrace, I don't really even have the words for it, to be honest. I just think that is just so out of line. And to me, look, you guys can let me know how you feel, but to me, I think that's almost unforgivable. I think your son, he's obviously accomplished a lot, number one. Seems obviously like a, good guy and everything. Fighting in 10 days, 80,000 in front of Wembley. He's obviously done well for himself. Chris Eubank Sr. is also someone that unfortunately has already lost one of his sons, not too long ago. To then call one of your sons that is, present, disgrace, and, there's also talks in the media of, you're not speaking with him, you don't want anything to do with him. I don't think that's right. You're saying you're not going to be in your son's corner. Again, I can kind of understand the fact that, you don't want to be involved in this fight for the reasons that we've discussed. But to say, you're never going to be in his corner and things of that nature, I think that's very out of line. And, I think those comments, I think they're almost shameful, to be honest with you. I don't know why he said that. I don't think there was a need to say that. And I think that's really disappointing. That your son is, preparing for this fight and he's got to, hear that. He's obviously going to probably be asked questions about his father on fight week. And, I don't think that's great. It's not something I really even want to talk about because I do think that a son and father relationship should be, behind closed doors. If you feel that way, maybe say that to Chris yourself and, don't bring it to the media. But yeah, I thought that was, really harsh. I thought that was out of line. Okay, you referenced the fact that Chris Eubank Jr. Smashed Conor Benn with an egg. But, put some context into it. He didn't just do that for no reason. Conor Benn is someone that's been massively disrespectful to Chris Eubank Jr. He's mentioning the fact that, Chris Eubank Sr. doesn't like him. He's bringing family into it. I do think when you bring family into it, you cross a line, that unspoken line that you shouldn't go past, in my opinion. As well, Conor Benn failed that drugs test, over 2 years ago. We still have not got an explanation. Why did you fail the drugs test? You still can't answer it. Chris Eubank Jr. has answered you the question. All you keep saying is he's an idiot. So you're deflecting, and let's be real. You were someone before the drugs, mate. You were pretty much you were not a very good fighter. If you guys want to look at a more in-depth video that I've done on this topic, go look at a video I did a few months prior. But Conor Benn, again, he was someone that was getting dropped and put down and, not looking convincing at journeyman level at best. All of a sudden he's got this, one punch power. He's looking like a beast. He fails to, sign up to the WBC program in terms of year-round random blood and urine testing. He failed to sign up for that. Therefore he got removed from the rankings. He said it was a mistake. And what a coincidence. A year later, you failed for 2 drugs tests with clomiphene, and clomiphene just does not get into your system. So yeah, it's all well and good you calling Chris Eubank Jr. an idiot and things of that nature. But you would think that 2 years have gone by, you would have a legitimate reason as to why you failed that drugs test. You haven't said that. All you and Eddie Hearn keep saying is that you've been cleared. Cleared of what? Because like I said, no one has come out and said that those drugs tests were wrong. No one said that they're faulty. You've pretty much just been quiet and deflected. And for that reason, I really hope Chris Eubank Jr., really puts you in your place in 10 days' time. So again, thanks to everyone for tuning in. Let me know what you guys think about the video. What do you guys think about the fight coming up in 10 days? And also, what do you make of Chris Eubank Sr.'s comments? Obviously, I've had my thoughts, but, always interested to hear what you guys have to say. And I will see you guys next week for Fight Week.